All right, we're going to let everybody kind of funnel in here. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the next installment of Coach's Corner. I have somebody that I think you all know very well. You certainly should by now, unless, of course, you are joining us and you are not a current student of PHC or a graduate, in which case you might not know who Erin is. So, Erin, I'm going to have you introduce yourself. But as just a reminder, because we skipped a month here, Coach's Corner is designed to help people get an inside look at what people that have graduated from our program and are actually out building businesses. They have businesses, many of them full-time businesses, how they got there, and give you the opportunity to ask some questions, pick their brain a little bit, but otherwise just sort of get inspired and sort of hear yet another success story. So that's what Coach's Corner is all about. This is why we do it as a meeting rather than a traditional webinar, because I want to see your face when you pipe up and ask a question. But if you're shy, you're camera shy, you don't want to like pipe in there, that's great. Just type it in the chat. We'll see it. And otherwise, just make sure everyone's on mute unless you're going to speak, because otherwise we hear back. Somebody muted me. Okay, now we're good. All right, so Erin is joining us. So I'm going to have Erin introduce herself. And then Erin, I'm just going to treat you like I treat every other Coach's Corner guest.
I love it. I will say I'm having some weird camera issues with my Zoom lately. I don't know if you guys are picking that up, but last week or so, I've been having some camera issues. So I do apologize in advance if I freeze, but my audio should keep going. So I work with Laura at Primal Health Coach Institute right out the gate. Laura and I are on the faculty of the school. Probably a lot of you know that. Maybe some of you don't. It's all good. You might know us both as co-hosts of Health Coach Radio. We really care about health coaching. Like generally speaking, we care a lot about health coaching. Yeah. And for the perspective of this conversation, I am a health coach, and I do want to talk about my experience as a health coach. And just to cue this up for you all before we get into the meat of this conversation, one of my skills I'm working on is trying to be more brief and interesting when I talk. So just as we get into this sort of business stuff, I really don't want to overwhelm anybody because it's overwhelming. You know what else is overwhelming is health change. And I think the parallels between building a business and moving into health change, the stuff that we coach our clients through, they're on the same plane of overwhelmingness. And I love this idea of like, let's just bring it down to like something that's really gettable and easy and enjoyable. So I'm going to endeavor to do that as we go through this talk today. But I want to talk to you about building your business. And I want to talk to you from the perspective of a health coach that has built a business. I built my business 9 years ago, right? So the thing is, now one time I hired a business coach and she had built her business 10 years ago. And now she has this massive following, millions of followers. She's making fat stacks. And it's almost like I felt like my business coach couldn't remember or relate to what it was like to be new / what it would be like to start new today. Because if you started new 10 years ago, it was a completely different ballgame. If you're starting new today, the whole world has changed, right? From marketing and like business development. So in recent years, I've started a few other businesses, not in health coaching, but what it did was it reconnected me to the brass tacks of starting a business that's probably online. And these businesses I started were in many different categories, not in health coaching. We don't even have to go into what categories were, because what it enabled me to do was to remember how to start a business. And in doing that, I learned a lot again. And I thought, wow, you know what? This is actually, hear me out. It's actually easier than we think it is. So I just want to leave you with that initial sort of like, you want to cue that up, starting your health coaching practice or ramping it up if you already have started, but you're looking to take it to another level. It is actually simple, but we can overcomplicate it by sort of spinning our wheels and overanalyzing. That's my intro.
Well, that's a lesson I try to drive home with my own health coaching clients, that a lot of the stuff we're going to talk about really is simple. They're simple concepts, but that doesn't mean they're easy. Right. You know, putting your first like Instagram reel out there is scary. It was scary for me. I have yet to actually put myself on a reel, by the way. They're all like my kids and stuff, but to be fair. So some things they really are, the concept is simple, but they're not necessarily easy to do.
Right.
So we feel you, people. So I like to start every Coach's Corner, similar to kind of Health Coach Radio, but really I would love you to take everybody back to what made you want to be a health coach? Remember when you and I did that one video, the very first time we met Mark Sisson, you guys, we had like a team meeting. We got to go to Mark Sisson's house, and we were renting an Airbnb together. We decided to just sort of do a video just about what brought us to health coaching and our own little origin story. So it was kind of fun to tell that story. And I would like you to tell yours because it's kind of funny.
Yeah. I mean, you guys have probably heard this a few times if you've been listening, but the short version, because brevity is my new life goal, is I was diagnosed pre-diabetic, which didn't make sense because I was an exercise and diet professional. I was a professional dieter and exerciser. I did not eat junk food. I was not sedentary. I was doing everything right. I was crushing my 7 meals of lean turkey, ground turkey, and, the whole 9 yards, doing it right, and became pre-diabetic and was very annoyed by that. I found it to be annoying and frustrating. And it didn't make sense. And so I rejected the diagnosis and decided to learn about what this was and how somebody like me could get it. And in learning that, what I uncovered was that, unfortunately, a lot of conventional wisdom that I had followed obediently for my whole life was wrong. And there's actually a different way to support your metabolic health, which, by the way, spoiler alert, is the area of expertise I now practice in: metabolism, insulin resistance, prediabetes, because that was me. I guess this is almost 15 years ago, right? So I just, that's who I work with. That's what I love to do. So maybe like you guys, some type of passion spurred you. It could have been you lost somebody close to you. It could have been like me, just frustrated, angry. It could have been any one of those emotions, probably in some level drove you to attain a health coaching certification and ultimately become a health coach. I really do believe, and I don't want to put this on you all, but if you are pursuing a health coaching certification, I believe you probably would like to be a health coach at some day. I'm just going to make that assumption that that's why you're doing it. You want to help people. And I wanted to help people too. So what I knew when I launched my business in 2014 was that I had this sort of rally cry around conventional wisdom about food and fuel. I knew lots of people. I could see people in my midst who were struggling with the same things I was struggling with. And I wanted to help those people. Did I know how to help them? Did I know what needed to exist to help them? Did I know what programming looked like? I had no idea. I was coming in completely cold, but I had a desire to help. And then I had to build the competencies for everything else along the way. I had never started a business before. I worked a regular job. I had a regular office job, making a regular salary every 2 weeks, getting my regular paycheck, doing regular stuff forever. I had never started a business. I don't have an entrepreneurial spirit naturally. All that stuff had to be learned and practiced. But the come from was, just like many of us, a health struggle.
Yeah. And so you enrolled in a different school like I did initially, because this one didn't exist back then. Right. Yeah. So you and I both started kind of around the same time, 9-10 years ago. But you were in Calgary and I was in Illinois and whatever. So but we both went to different schools initially, yet we both took Mark's first program, the very, very first. It was called the Primal Blueprint Expert Certification, because we were both like, that's it. That's kind of what I was looking for, right? We both just kind of bought it early. We were one of the first people that took it. And then had to go out and try to build a program.
Yeah.
Right. I would love for you, if you don't mind, share like that journey, because I think that's what a lot of people struggle with is like, Mark Sisson's already done it, or so-and-so's already done it. Like, there's a million different books. Like, what can I bring to the table? I mean, I can speak to kind of my journey there, but this is your interview. I would love to kind of if you can go back and kind of experience that again, what it was like for you to kind of put pen to paper and think through how you're going to help somebody through their journey. Yeah.
So one thing I want to point out, and maybe you all can borrow some of this from me for a minute. One of my toxic traits is that I don't consider outcomes. I don't live in outcome land. I'm not like, I don't really preoccupy myself with what it could be. I just live it really in the process. I'm really in the moment. And like, I begin with the beginning in mind. So I never, at no point did I think, well, I'm not going to become a primal health coach because Mark is the ultimate primal health coach. Obviously everybody read Mark's book. It never dawned on me. I feel like we hear that a lot from people. Like, there's nothing new to say. I didn't care there wasn't anything new to say. I felt like what I was saying was new because I was saying it in my way, from my point of view, with my frustration personally fueling it. I had my own way of saying it. So when I put pen to paper to build a program, because that's what I thought. So when I said, okay, I'm a certified health coach now, because I had done a different credential before, like Laura said, I did a holistic nutrition diploma because that was the only thing that kind of existed. And I thought I needed a credential to do this, whatever, for some credibility. And then the Primal certification came out. But when I decided, okay, I'm going to start this business, what happens when I get a client? Because I was like, I'm definitely getting a client. I don't know where or how, but it's definitely going to happen. Talk about like how you get those clients. But for me, it was like, well, what happens when I get one? Like, what's the first thing they need to do? Well, they need to pay me. They need to book in with me. All these things, right? Logistic things that aren't super sexy to talk about, but it's like, I'm a customer. I know what I like when I go to book a hair appointment or whatever appointment. I know what systems I like to have in place as a consumer. I need this to be a slick customer experience. So how am I going to get this person into my midst? And then what's the first thing I need to like deliver to them? Because they're paying me for some kind of program or product. I don't really know. And all I did was, and not to make this sound overly simple, but just hear me out. I went back to my origin story. What was the first thing I did? The first thing I did when I was curing my insulin resistance, this is before I found Primal, was I changed my meal timing. Okay, so I read a different book about insulin resistance that wasn't in the primal paleo realm. And it suggested that like a circadian meal timing philosophy where you the sort of big breakfast, I call it the funnel. Like I still use it to this day. I call it the funnel. Don't take it because it's proprietary to my program, the funnel. But that's the first thing I did. The first thing I did is I started eating a really big breakfast. I set aside, 10 minutes in the morning before my busy workday kicked off to make a big protein forward breakfast. And then everything else sorted it out after that. All my snacking urges went away, protein, right? We all know the benefits of a protein forward diet. Now it's very popular these days. So I said, okay, the first thing I did was I set aside 10 minutes every morning, non-negotiably, to make eggs and sausage every morning at the same breakfast. So like the first thing my client will do is that. Doesn't have to be eggs and sausage, but the first thing I'm going to get my client to do is create this breakfast ritual. So that became me sitting at my MacBook, which I've shared my MacBook on many webinars. I typed the letters off the keys. There are no more letters on the key. I still have it, the MacBook. Typing why breakfast had to be protein for, why it needed to be the biggest meal of the day, everything I had learned about it through reading and through self-experimentation. In my own words, this is why it's great. This is what I want you to do. Here's some examples, just writing a document. I was writing a document. This is 2014. So we had fewer digital learning management options, right? So I was writing a Word doc. It became a PDF that I then emailed to my client. Like how freaking quasi-analog is that? You know what I mean? That's where I started. And then when I got my first client, I remember her name. Her name was Tennille. You don't forget a name like Tennille. Her name was Tennille. And we can talk about how I found her, which I didn't. She found me. But anyway, Tennille got my first ebook. And I said, okay, Tennille, for your first week, you're going to go off and do this breakfast thing. Let's talk about that. What is that going to look like for you? She's like, well, I'm really busy in the mornings. I'm not hungry in the mornings. All the things that to this day, the same sound bites I hear from every client to this day. It's never changed. Nobody's ever thrown me for a loop with some new reason why they can't have breakfast. So right out the gate, my first client was giving me all of her barriers. Anybody who's taken an advanced coaching course with me knows that barrier identification is like gold. That's a big part of what health coaches do. So I just was like, well, let's play it out. Like, okay, what do you do on Monday? What does your Monday look like? What time does your alarm go off? What time do you have to go to work? What proteins do you like? Do you know how to cook them? Like coaching, just kind of troubleshooting this with her. She went off and did that. And I was like, okay, I'm going to meet with Tennille next week. What's the second thing we need to do? And then I typed the second thing. Like Tennille built the program with me. Props to Tennille. Just so you know, the program has changed 100 times since Tennille, but she helped me build it. Does that make sense when I say that I was writing documents? Can we all like wrap our heads around what that means? Like just writing documents about like, these are my protocols following my trajectories. That makes sense, more or less?
Yes, this could be interactive, peeps. Pipe up here. You can type it in the chat if you don't want to actually speak up. But and look, I did everything the same way too. I mean, this was 10 years ago. I didn't even know there was a thing like a platform. I did everything on everything was Google. It was a Google Doc, a spreadsheet, Google, what's slides. That was my idea of fancy, was eventually taking this doc and making it into a slide. And then it took me 5 years how to figure out how to take those slides and record myself reading them so I could give it to people as a video.
Right.
So you'll progress that way. So I love the idea of just kind of building the plane as you're flying it, because sometimes all the time, if you wait until it's completely done and perfect before you start, the vast majority of people are never really going to start.
Yes. Now, if we play a little thought experiment, and I'm starting Eat Simple, which is my business, on January 12th, 2023, which is what today is, if you're watching on a replay somewhere, would I be typing Word documents and converting them to PDFs and emailing them to my clients? No. I would probably be typing them into what's called a learning management system or a practice management system. So there's 100 of these: Kajabi, Thinkific, Practice Better, Healthy, Coach Catalyst, one we really like. I'd be typing these lessons into all these same words into a curriculum online that I would then enroll Tennille into. And I would have an email automation sequence, maybe using MailChimp, or if the learning management system had its own email tool, which some of them do, or they integrate. We're not going to get into the weeds on that, but there would be an email that says, "Hey, Tennille, here's your next lesson. Click here to read it. Click here to book your coaching call," which is, this is the more digital offering. Everything I did back then was bare bones. Yeah. But there are tools, and they're not hard. They're not much different than, like, you wrote Google Docs, I wrote Word docs. It's not much different than writing a doc. You're just writing it in a different kind of tool, and it just exists digitally. Yeah. It's very easy to enroll people. Like, I have an online curriculum now. Somebody signs up for any of my programs, boom, you're in, boom, you're in. Oh, now there's an email sequence. I'm hands off. I'm not emailing PDFs to anyone. I'm not emailing booking links. It's all more or less automated. And my stuff is not that well automated. It's just okay automated, but it's still easy. It's easy to do. Do you guys believe it's easy to do? I don't want to oversimplify, but like, it sounds easy, right? Like, you can type words on a screen. You do that all the time. It's not any different.
Ray's asking, what's the PDF software called? So, like, for example, Google Docs will allow you to export it into a PDF file. I think it's Acrobat, right? Yeah.
Acrobat is your PDF. I would really advise against using PDFs, just like straight out the gate. Don't do that. That was 2014. Documents converted to PDFs, emailed to people. People don't really want that anymore. We're mobile now, so you have to have some kind of platform people can read your stuff on their phone. PDFs are clunky. That, I would say, that's a very analog option if someone's really opposed to investing in technology. But even, Laura, you mentioned Google Docs. The entire Google suite, the G Suite, is really free. Everyone knows how to use it. It's available to everyone. You could, if you really played your cards right, you could use the G Suite to just really orchestrate the delivery of your material, and it doesn't cost anything. But I would advise against using PDFs.
Yeah, I kept everything in Google Docs, and I did, week 1, week 2, and I would literally copy paste that into an email and just change the name, or I would customize something and then send it out. So my clients would get a new email once a week with that week's lesson. Again, once I got fancier and I figured out how to do an email, I know how to embed a link now. I didn't even know how to do that in the beginning. I think one of my kids had to show me how to do it. But so for a long time, everything I did was just via email. I stored everything in Google Docs, including photos and things like that. And Onelli's saying, and I think she's right. Now, most people like videos or audio lessons, because they don't have to take the time to slow down and actually read something. They can multitask, which I guess there's some schools of thought there too, but you're right, Onelli. That's one of the things I do like about Coach Catalyst and why I'm using it personally. First of all, I got comfortable with it because Primal Pro's on there and I got used to using it, but it's literally in their pocket. Yeah. Like, it cannot be more on the go than anything else. And a lot of the platforms now are coming out with app versions as well.
Mm-hmm. That's the thing, is you're going to have to iterate, because the way people engage with content is ever changing, right? So I mentioned to Ray, don't use PDFs, that's old time. But even, Laura, what you shared was really useful. Like, let's suppose you managed to get yourself set up in a practice management or learning management software, and you're like, okay, I did it. Oh my gosh, I built a course. Yes. and you're feeling really proud because maybe that's the level of technology know-how you have. Everything else can be manual. You could manually email like Laura did through Gmail. Hey, Bob, here's your curriculum for this week, and send a link. And hey, here's the link to book your coaching call, and manually send the link. And I used to do that on Sundays before I got automated. Sunday was the day I sat down and mass emailed my client roster, which, by the way, is only ever 8 to 10 people at the most. I don't keep a lot of clients in my roster, but that's pretty manageable. You build a curriculum once, it lives there. But like to Laura's point, even my curriculum is better on a MacBook, and it's very text heavy. I need to iterate because of what Anneli just said. People prefer video. What you just said, Laura, they want it in their pocket. They really do need it to be in some kind of maybe really nimble app. So I think you start by building your program as these quote unquote documents, right? Just brain dumping material into some kind of, but then the tool that you end up using is going to always change. But these tools are designed for non-techie entrepreneurs, for fitness professionals, nutrition professionals. You don't have to be a software engineer to use them. They're easier than you think.
They've gotten easier and easier. I remember the first time we looked at Healthy, I was like, eyes like, what? We actively chose not, even though they were really nice people, it was way too big, way too bloated, way too complicated. But if you're a technology person, you might love that stuff. I've heard really great things about Practice Better, that it's much easier to use, far less bloated, but it does have some of the other bells and whistles people might want, like scheduling and like in software conferencing, like that kind of stuff. I still am not, I just wanted something to deliver content that gave me the ability to communicate. I don't want to give all my clients my cell phone number. That's one of the reasons. One of the other reasons I liked Coach Catalyst is I could go ahead.
This is a good point that you're touching on, because not to disparage or pump any particular tires of any particular platform, but I do feel that sometimes coaches are like, well, I need this very elaborate HIPAA compliant forms and video conferencing, this whole system. It's like, no, you don't. You're putting the cart way before the horse. You're worrying about this delivery tool, but you don't even have anything to deliver yet. Like, worry about what you're going to deliver. Graduate into those programs. That's why we landed on Coach Catalyst. We looked at them all, and I was like, this one's the simplest. That's what coaches need. Delivery of material, check off little tasks for your client. If you want to add video chat and client records and stuff, I struggle to imagine too many coaches having that many clients that they can't keep track of them. I have a full client roster, and I can pretty effortlessly keep track of them without having a special tool for that. But I just feel like we do, it's almost kind of like when folks get really obsessed with developing their logo. It's like, don't do that. Don't do that. Don't worry about the tools. Don't worry about scaling to 6 figures. Don't worry about your logo. You got to start with the bare bones. And that is a program. That is a product to sell somebody.
Focus on content and outreach, right? Talking to people. Speaking of HIPAA compliant, I want to touch on that real quick, because this comes up a lot. And I'm like, health coaches are not under the purview of HIPAA. We're not. You don't have to have it. Now, look, if you are working in a doctor's office and you might somehow be accessing medical records, then sure. But if you're a health coach in private practice and you're not maintaining medical records, you are not under the purview of HIPAA. You do not have to worry about that. Does everybody know what HIPAA is, first of all? Or better, it might be easier if you don't know what HIPAA is, raise your hand and we'll explain it. But it's all about privacy, right? Healthcare privacy, and health coaches are not healthcare providers. There's plenty of those. We are absolutely in the health space, but we are not medical professionals, and we shouldn't be storing medical information.
Like, I actually just wrote.
Go ahead.
Yeah. I just wrote some curriculum for this, for our business pillar of our course. And I had to go down this rabbit hole because I've never worried about HIPAA compliance, because I'm literally working in private practice with individuals, and they're not sharing private medical information with me at all. We're talking about sleep. We're talking about their diet. We're talking about, their weight loss goal. And so to Laura's point, health coaches are not obligated to comply with HIPAA. If you work in a medical establishment, that establishment has to, and then you will have to. But I just think that's important to know, because if we're really like, that's another kind of cart before the horse thing. Like, we can spin our wheels worrying about stuff like this, and we just would never get to business. You're just never going to get to business if you continue to worry about things that actually aren't worth worrying about.
Right. Look, I mean, if you, Melissa's a former paramedic, Anelli is a certified nurse assistant. So if you're nervous about it and you just kind of want to CYA, that's completely fine. But if you're, I don't want you thinking as though that this needs to be a box that's checked. If a platform that you really like, but it doesn't have that, don't let that kind of get in the way. Rose is asking, is it good practice to keep records for each session you have with your client? If so, how long would you recommend keeping those records?
Right. So records is interesting. Records is interesting because I got to tell you, when I have my client records are notes from our conversations. They're written in full sentences about how the client is feeling and what their goals are and why those goals are important to them. I don't have lab values. I don't use metrics personally in my coaching practice, and everyone's mileage may vary. I don't really care how much my client weighs. I don't really care what their resting heart or HRV. I don't do that stuff. So I don't have records per se, but I do have client notes. So let's just assume that's what we mean. So that's actually, from a privacy perspective, any notes that you take need to be on a password protected device. Guess what? Mine are in my phone, password protected, boom, safe, private. I'm meeting the requirements of the Privacy Act. I'm doing my due diligence. My notes are literally in my notes app. I transcribe them into Google Docs that I share with my clients. So it's kind of a lockdown Google Doc. The client and I are both editors on it. That's where we keep track of what we talked about and their goals for the upcoming week. So it's a great idea to keep client records / notes. It's a really good idea, in some way, just to keep track of what you're talking about. What kind of records you keep will depend on what kind of health coaching practice you have. You've just learned that mine is very non-objective data. I don't use objective data. I'm fully in the subjective realm, how my clients are feeling and living. Mm-hmm. But that's how I would encourage that. That's a smart way of keeping some records.
I think it's useful too to be able to go back and revisit with your client. Especially a lot of times I'll take notes of things that they say that I find really intriguing, and I might go back and ask them how they feel now. Those sorts of things that I think are going to be good coachable moments as they grow and progress. And so Kent is asking, I'm brand new to this. It sounds like after the certification, I will need to then create my own training plan. Is that correct? We do provide you with something. So did you want to speak to that a little bit about what our program provides students and graduates with out of the gate?
I will. And I will speak very candidly, if you guys are okay with that. After several years of our graduates asking us to give them a program, I made one. I made a 12-week program. It was like pulling teeth, because I thought to myself, I don't get this. Like, you have an individual client in front of you. You're working through a completely different specialty than that health coach, than that health coach, than that health coach. We're all doing completely different things with completely different clients. And a client-led coaching relationship doesn't have a script. It doesn't have a template. It's driven by the client. So, but I get it. We want to so I created it in the sense of like, okay, well, here's a template of what a coaching relationship could look like. You're welcome to replicate it. So the one that we have in the course, very analog. It's like, here's a 12-week sort of educational, we'll call it a curriculum, sort of a timeline, let's say. You can build that out in Google Docs, Word Docs, online, whatever, however you want, in your own words. Now we have Primal Pro, which is super slick. You just buy that, you enroll your clients in. I like Primal Pro. I'm not as fond of my 12-week program that I wrote, because that's a long-term coaching relationship. But Primal Pro is such a nimble, it's also 12 weeks long, daily little task, bite-sized pieces. It flows really well. I'm not mad about Primal Pro. Primal Pro, I think, is cool. The template that I built years ago for graduates, it's a great template. Please use it, reference it, replicate it if you want. But I want you to just remember, like, you have a unique specialty. You have a different kind of client than I do. I wrote my program for Tennille. Who are you writing your program for? They're probably going to need something different than Tennille needs, right? So I'm just going to keep name dropping Tennille because it's just such a good name. So yeah, to answer that question, we do offer you some programming ideas, and we even have a specific tool that you can immediately subscribe to, enroll clients in, like tomorrow. It's very cool. It's app-based. That's, again, people are on their phones. Laura uses it all the time. Laura's more familiar with, honestly, Primal Pro than I am. I don't use it in my practice currently, but I built it. So it's good. Hope that helps.
Yeah. And look, it's what I love about what's already in the program is it gives everybody a starting place. It gives you a little bit of an elevated platform when you're like, I don't know about, you and I, we started like, I don't know what a coaching program looks like. I guess I'm going to make it up. Right. So we just made it up. So now you guys are starting in an elevated place. It's like, here's an example. Here's an example of how we might suggest you take Joe Schmo eating a standard American diet, or I would even say someone trying to eat well, but like eating the food pyramid, to more of an ancestral lifestyle. Here's a flow of concepts you may want to consider when you may want to consider touching base every week. Here are some suggestions on how long. Here is a baseline, bare minimum price that you should consider. So we're giving you a starting place. Now, what we want you to be able to do is take that with whoever your avatar is and be like, I might move this piece here. I might go, make some changes, figure out what additional resources your client might actually need. Do you want to meet every week? Is it something a little bit different? But now you've got a starting place. You've got an example that it's like a chassis that you can build a new vehicle onto and customize it and make it yours. And, what I love about it is other programs out there either give you zero or they give you something that you kind of have to use that's very specific. We want you to build yours. We're trying to support you in building yours. And Melissa King said something, which I laughed because I did the same thing, Melissa. I gave my clients the beginning marks to the 21-day total body transformation book and used it as an education portion before I created my own program. During the coaching sessions, those were all customized to my client. I did the exact same thing. I gave them the 21-day total body transformation and the journal, that 90-day journal. We used that and I was off to the races. So to be fair, here I am trying to build my own program, but really, the 21-day journal worked really well, and it works really well in groups too.
It would. Yeah, that thing was really neat. But honestly, Primal Pro can work the same way. Primal Pro is a standalone program delivered on an app, and you can have a coaching relationship, adjacent to that. It can be a really personalized coaching relationship, or it can also be a really low price point, low barrier to entry DIY program. So you can have the exact same program delivered two ways, one with a higher ticket, more personalized approach, one with like low touch, low ticket approach, and it's all done for you. But I just want to circle back just to the first thing I said in sharing this was that when I built my program, I wasn't building a program. I didn't know that's what I was doing. I was just like, what's the first thing this client needs? And that was, again, the logistics of getting her into my world, taking her money, the logistics stuff and the teaching stuff. At the time, I didn't even know how to coach. So that was something that came later. Really good skill to learn how to become a really good coach. But it wasn't like, I'm going to build a program. It was like, I got to teach this gal something. She just paid me some money and I just wrote the first thing, right? So I think there's some overwhelm inherent in all this stuff we have to build or all the stuff we have to care about. And it's like, you imagine you have a client who's starting with you on Monday. What do you need to do right now to service that client on Monday? That client, that one person, not your 1,000th client, not your $100,000 six figure. Don't even get me started on the scaling to six figures language because it's very much cart before horse. But
let's make 3 figures. Let's make 4 figures.
Yeah, let's start with 3 figures.
Make 6 figures.
But like, I just want to coming from this place of like removing overwhelm. It's like, you're not building a program. You're just helping a client through their first week with you. That's all you have to do, in a manner of speaking. And that, I think, really takes the pressure off, makes it fun. You probably don't think it sounds fun, but I'm here to tell you from the future, it's fun to do it.
Yeah. So Sean's asking what Primal Pro is. And Sean, if you're reading some of the other comments from people that have bought it, it is separate. Okay. Because, look, what's included is the analog-ish kind of concept in the course, make it yours. If you literally want us to write every lesson, pick the program, literally get it up and running in an hour, that's separate. And you pay extra for that. And there's a subscription involved and you, so we can talk about it at a later date. But to Erin's point, this is something that we kind of grudgingly agreed to build because we kept hearing from people this was the one thing that was getting in the way. that they wanted something to work with. And I have no doubt, Jason is saying that he plans to kind of tweak it along the way as he gets more feedback, but so far people are really loving the kind of the way it's going for them so far. But that was the whole point. That was also one of the reasons why we chose Coach Catalyst, is because everything's customizable. Mm-hmm. I fully envision, and what I would recommend to people is buy Primal Pro as it is. And then when you find things you want to change, if they're material in any way or big, duplicate the entire program. Because on Coach Catalyst, you can have as many programs on there as you want, and it doesn't change what you're paying. You can have 25 programs on there. The only way you pay more is with how many clients you have. So duplicate it and then make any like major changes along the way. Mm-hmm. So anyway.
Yeah. I would love to share a story though, if I may.
Good.
Have the floor. A brief and concise one.
Yes.
I shared this story on a webinar last week. So if you watched that webinar, first of all, I acknowledge you. You're a hero, because I wasn't practicing brevity last week, but today I am. A friend of mine approached me about starting a business and he said to me, I want to start this landscaping business. Will you help me build a website? Because I have a little bit of technology knowledge, but honestly, it's not even hard to build a website. It's not even hard. You click, you drag, you type. It couldn't be easier. It's a little bit of a headache to get the website online, but it's literally 5 steps, and they tell you how to do it. You can do it. So I was like, great, Bob. Everybody I know is named Bob, just so you know. Bob or Tennille, those are the names I go with in these stories. I was like, Bob, let's meet at a coffee shop. And by coffee shop, I mean pub. Let's meet at a pub and we'll build your website so you can start your business. Now, Bob had never started a landscaping business before. Bob doesn't know how to run a landscaping business, but Bob has a bobcat. He has a bobcat. Bob has a bobcat and a tractor, and it's like a trailer, and he's got some machines, and he knows how to move dirt around. And so he's like, I want to do this as a job. I don't like my current job. I want to see if I can, make this work. So Bob has a job, but he kind of doesn't like it anymore. He's feeling more called to this dirt moving. Let's just go with it. So Bob kept his job, but he wanted to build this on the side. I think that's actually pretty important just to keep in the back of your mind. Let's have something, let's build this on the side, because that's a really intelligent and responsible way of doing it. So I sat down with Bob and I said, okay, Bob, you're going to start this landscaping company. And Bob thinks all he needs is a website. He's off to the races, but he needs a little more than that. I was like, what kind of stuff do you want to do? Like, what do you mean by landscaping? I don't know. Is that like planting trees? Is that what is it? Mowing lawns? I don't even know what that means. He's like, oh, no. More like clearing land and moving dirt and building driveways and sort of more of that kind of stuff. It's like, okay, well, that's good to know. So you're in this dirt moving realm. That's his specialty. Landscaping is not a specialty. Because if I need somebody to go trim my shrubs, Bob's not my guy. He doesn't know how to do that. He's a dirt moving guy. So we had to get really clear what services. And I went into the weeds. I'm like, what kind of dirt do you move? Do you do gravel? Would you do recycled asphalt? How about manure? Do you do pasture maintenance? Would you anything? And he's like, we're writing down all these things he could do with his machines. Great. We did a little competitive analysis. What are other people doing and what are they charging? So we can get a sense of what that costs and stuff. That's just fun to do as well. But think about it. If you wanted to hire somebody to move dirt, what would you need to know? You would need to know, is there somebody who does this? First of all, where's this person? Is there somebody nearby who seems to offer this service? How can I get in touch with them? And how can I hire them? Like, how can I hire this person? What do they do? Can I hire them? If so, how? That's all you need. That's all Bob needed to get started. So yes, we built a website. We did buy a web address. So that's actually that seems like a small thing, but it's actually kind of a big thing, because you do want to have a website. So you're going to have to think of a business name. You're going to have to buy a URL. Those are becoming more and more scarce as time goes on. So you're going to have to think through what's going to be called. His was like bobsdirtmoving.com. It's not, but he got it. So he bought that web domain at the pub. Now I have a sense of what Bob's company's called. I made the world's fastest logo in Canva, because it doesn't matter. Logos are not important. I grabbed some tractor stock photography also off camera, made him a 1-page website that says bobsdirtmoving.com, pasture maintenance, fencing, gravel, I don't know, list of services, contact me, a contact form. And we even put a booking tool in. Just that's next level. But all he needed was, here's my webpage. Here's how to get in touch with me. any email inquiries he gets comes through his email. He manages that. It's easy. That's literally all Bob needed to start that business, was to know what business he needed. He needed to declare a specialty. So it's not landscaping. And then we build the thing that describes the specialty he teaches, and we have a contact. Now, there's zero clients. We published the website, finished our drinks, paid the bill, went home. Bob had zero clients. But I said, Bob, when you get your first contact through this website, which you will, once you start putting it out there, which we'll talk about, what's the first thing you need to do? He's like, oh, I don't know. I guess the first thing I need to do is go to the person's property and do an estimate. I'm like, great. You should have a booking tool. Click here to book your estimate. Let's set that up. And then, how are you going to handle payment? When somebody decides to hire you, are you taking a deposit up front? Are they paying it when it's all done? He's like, no, I should take a deposit up front. I'm like, great. You're going to need some kind of merchant system. Square, easy. Stripe, easy. PayPal, easy. They're all easy. They all take credit cards. Couldn't be easier. Don't use Venmo. That's so annoying. Don't use Venmo. I hate that. It's such a crappy customer experience. I'm sorry, but it is. But like, people want to swipe their credit card and pay for a service, right? That feels professional. So we got Bob thinking about this stuff. And then we went to the business of marketing him, putting him out there, which I know is that's actually a separate topic, to be totally honest with you. But the point is, I sat down with Bob for 2 hours and took his business from zero to started in 2 hours. And we didn't build much, right? Like, there's not much to that. You have to consider what the customer needs to know to book with you, to find you. And that's it.
Yeah. So Jody's asking, I don't know if this is a question you can legally answer, but at what point do you suggest making your business legal, and which business type do you recommend filing as? Do you have an opinion?
This is so not my area of expertise, but I think it's probably wise to do that right away. I started as a sole proprietorship, but I do think that going for the LLC is a good idea. And it's not hard to do that either. Like, you think about it, we're in an entrepreneurial age. This stuff has been made very easy, very accessible. You could figure out how to, I incorporated my business for reasons I will never understand why I did that, but I incorporated, it wasn't hard. The legal, the liability stuff, that is another separate topic completely. And in health coaching, what really protects you though is remaining in scope of practice. I'm just going to put that out there.
Yeah, 100%. But in terms of, look, I mean, Jody, if you're just starting and you have like a handful of clients, I don't think it's all that big a deal. But there will be things as you grow that you want to have access to. They'll ask you for things like an LLC, and they're going to want, documentation of some kind. So as you grow and, look, if you want to start approaching other businesses, they'll ask those kinds of questions. But I agree, an LLC is a great way. Marty was mentioning this. It really just helps remove legal liability from your personal assets in case somebody gets a wild hair. But to Erin's point, the number one way to stay out of trouble is to stick with your scope of practice. This is also a reason why we highly recommend you kind of niche and know what problem you solve, and you do something specific, because then it keeps you from getting into the weeds of stuff you don't really understand. That's really not your wheelhouse. It helps you get really, really good and really, really clear at what you do, what you don't do, what you can and can't do in the space in which you run around and work in. So that whole idea of like establishing a niche, it has multiple purposes. It's not just so Erin and I can be annoying and talk about it all the time and how important it is. There are multiple reasons why. And, for me, it was, it made it so much easier for my program to make sense, rather than trying to have one program that fit the needs of like 12 different types of people, right? Versus having a specific problem that I solved that, by the way, is every client I take on my exact avatar client? No, but they all have essentially the same problem.
Yeah. Yes. I'm going to tell you, this is very uncouth, but I'm going to tell you that it's January 12th and I'm already at $15,000 of coaching income for this month. And I do one thing. I only do one thing. I specialize in insulin resistance for people who are just like me 15 years ago. And there's a lot of people out there in my niche, in your niche. I've got men, I've got women, I've got young people, I've got old people. They all have the same symptoms. They all relate to what I put out into the world. This is marketing, but I really do want to make this conversation about your business development, because the deal is, I believe that if I sat down with all of you, I could have your business started in a matter of hours, started and ready to sell to somebody, because everybody wants to know how to put themselves out there, how to market themselves. And again, that cart is in front of the horse. Market what? Like, what do you put out about what? Like, putting yourself out there, you have to have something to put out there. I'm Erin. I specialize in insulin resistance. And if you have these symptoms, that's what I help with. Work with me. I got the solution for this. Yeah. I have a solution. If you don't have a solution, then you're kind of shouting into the void. Like, I'm a health coach. Come work with me. I work with men. I work with women. I do weight loss. It's like, I really believe that you got to think about, what am I going to sell to people? And it's like, we're customers. We're all customers. When I went and bought this nail polish, I was looking for nail polish. I found 5 red nail polishes I want. This one, like, think about it from a consumer perspective. You're looking to buy something, and it has to be pretty specific. Like, think of it like a consumer packaged good, because we've all bought things. We know how we like to buy.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. So something popped into my head that I think is worth addressing. So you said that you do one thing is you're addressing and you're helping people with insulin resistance. So this is going to come up in terms of scope of practice. How can you say I help people with insulin resistance without being prescriptive in any way? And so can you speak to sort of the lines you don't cross that kind of keep you in scope?
Yeah. Well, I mean, insulin resistance has a bunch of symptoms, and anybody who's been insulin resistant knows what they are. Like, I speak openly about crushing fatigue. I couldn't stay awake at work. I couldn't stay awake behind the wheel of my car. I couldn't get myself off the couch to take care of my life. I was a young woman. I was trying to get ahead of my career. I had no mental energy. I was trying to date. I had nothing to give. I was gaining abdominal fat, no matter how. I was dieting and exercising, all these symptoms that, if I just speak to these symptoms, you speak to the experience of living with insulin resistance. I'm never out there saying, and you can check. I'll never say, hey, I'm going to cure your insulin resistance. I can say that among friends here. That's the kind of, if I was going to simplify it, I work with people on, bringing them back from insulin resistance. But I don't sell curing insulin resistance. I sell relief from the symptoms of insulin resistance. And that can be somebody who's already type 2 diabetic. A type 2 diabetic is also experiencing the symptoms of insulin resistance. I can bring I've brought type 2 diabetics back from diabetes, but I don't sell that. I don't offer that because that's out of scope of practice, but they feel miserable. And health coaches really are our areas. Like, you feel like hot garbage. I can help you with that. Like, the lived experience. And that's why, just as a side note, I'm so interested in the subjective data rather than the objective. Like, stick pins in my eyes. I don't want to look at people's blood values. I couldn't care less. Could not care less. Plus, it's out of scope of practice. But I do care how they're feeling, what their energy is like, how they're feeling about their body, how their appetite's showing up. That's more interesting to me, because I hated living with insulin resistance, and I know how much people hate that.
Yeah, that's just a question that comes up for me on the phone all the time as admissions director, and understanding that. So thank you for clarifying that. We're not diagnosing anything, right? You're just speaking to the client experience, and they're like, "That's me," and then they come talk to you.
Whenever I share that I used to fall asleep behind the wheel of my car, you wouldn't believe the number of people who come into my DMs like, "Oh my gosh, I always do." Like, that is one of those weird symptoms that only some people have. And it's so baffling and horrifying.
Oh, yeah. I talk about, like, I lived behind the wheel of my car, my past career. I was literally days, I don't know how I got home. Like, I made it home. I do not remember the drive.
Nope.
So talk about dangerous, right? Jody, Jesus Christ, that makes me want to stay off the road.
No worries. It's only 88% of the US population is resistant. It's fine.
Right. So listen, guys, like, in terms of this notion about how, this is another thing that comes up. I feel like the health coaching industry is so saturated. You can't swing a cat around me without hitting a health coach or what have you. And I'm telling you, this is so not true. There are a lot of health coaches out there. This is true. However, to Erin's point, 88% of the population is metabolically unwell. And the vast majority of what makes us unwell is all lifestyle. And Erin, let's not swing cat.
Cat lover.
Right. That's right. So, the CDC has literally invested a grant into with NBHWC by the way, the National Board for Health and Wellness Coding, to build a group coaching program for people with insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes. So the healthcare industry has gotten on board that this is manageable and treatable with diet and lifestyle. And there's at least 4 companies that I can think of off the top of my head that's the only thing they do. Healthcare companies that's the only thing they do, whether it's Verta Health, Simplex Health, Iota Health, and Abaddon Health. And there's more. There's going to be more. There's plenty of room for all of us to not be diagnostic, to not have to prescribe things or try to treat things that can move the needle for people that are suffering with these symptoms. And all you're doing is coaching, which I love. So can we dig into the weeds a little bit? Because I know we only have like 10 minutes left. I know you have a platform that you like to use. There are people that are going to have some questions. I want to know what questions you have for Erin, guys. So send them on this way. But so the way you tell everyone how you kind of run your program.
Yes. Okay. So I have 3 programs, but they're all in the same realm, right? They're all the same thing. Now I started with Tennille, right? Tennille, everybody remembers Tennille. That was me building my one-on-one client relationship. And I honestly wish we would all start with that. I just think this is just my personal opinion and you can take it or leave it, but you work with people one-on-one, you learn how to coach, you learn how to answer, you learn how to solve for the log jams that inevitably come up. Like I said, I at this point can predict what my clients are going to say when I tell them to eat breakfast. I know what they're going to say. I've heard it thousands of times at this point. So I really do think that starting with a one-on-one practice is the way to begin. I will say that that doesn't speak to the person who's really eager to scale. I want many clients because this is going to be a slow crawl. But I just think you get a more quality outcome, because then once I had my one-on-one client practice like firmed up, and that was through many clients. So after Tennille, I kind of threw it all in the garbage and started again. And then I did that again. And I did that again. It took a couple years before it was like, okay, this is my program. This is my coaching program. This is what everybody gets to go through. Now I'm going to make a group program. So the one-on-one program it lives now on a learning management system. The one I use is Thinkific because I'm just highly comfortable with Thinkific. I spend a lot of time in it, but there's 100 of them. I'm probably not even exaggerating. I helped another friend of mine build a business. Hers is on Kajabi. And you know what? It's the same. Right. And they're all the same. None of them are unique. They all work the same damn way. If you pulled up some random tool and said, Erin, build a curriculum on this tool, I could do it because they're all the same. That's a good thing to know. So I use Thinkific. People get enrolled in it, right? So client signs up with me. First of all, I'll go through the whole thing with you very briefly. We have a discovery call because they found me on, let's say, Instagram, probably. They liked what I said. They probably fall asleep behind the wheel of their car. They're like, whoa, she has the solution for this. They get on a discovery call. I seek to understand their problem. If I have the solution to their problem, I let them know I have the solution to your problem. Here's how I work with people. If I don't have the solution to the problem, we're not a good fit. I don't want to work with that person. So that's that. Once they decide to work with me, they get these intake forms. There's 3 of them that I built. And by the way, my intake forms that I built, I gave to Primal Health Coach Institute. It's in the course. You can use my intake form. You can make your own intake form. You can use ours as a template to see what kind of questions you might ask in an intake form. My intake forms live on my website. So I built a form using a very simple form tool on my website. My website's built on Wix.com, one of the easiest web building platforms, but they're all the same. Wix, Square, GoDaddy, Weebly, WordPress is a little more complex. They're all the same. Building a form is easy. So I link to these forms. Here's the forms, fill them in. They fill them in. The forms come back to me. Boom, boom, boom. There's 3 forms. The 3rd form comes back. I say, great, time to book your I'm manually emailing this, by the way. My program is not really automated. Time to book your onboarding session. Click here to book your 60 to 90 minute onboarding session. I'm going to go through your intake forms and teach you the first thing we want you to do. When they click that link, that goes to a booking tool, which I love. Used to be called Acuity Scheduling. I rave about it, but it's got a different name now. I think Square bought it. So it's Squarespace Scheduling. Mm-hmm. When they click to book that appointment, it's integrated with Stripe, my merchant account. So they pay upfront for the entire coaching relationship when they book that session. They pay, they book. I get on Zoom with them for their onboarding session. I run through their intake forms. I show them how to work through the curriculum. They also get, this is another tool, they get enrolled in an email automation sequence that says, here's week 1, here's week 2, here's week 3. It's sort of a weekly check-in emails. This is all automated. So every week I look at my calendar and I have my client calls. They're booked in. They booked them in themselves. Like, oh, I got all their weekly check-in form in there because I use that scheduling tool, which is slick. So I use Thinkific, I use MailChimp, I use Acuity, Square Scheduling, and I use Stripe. Those are my tools that I use. Now, if you started now, you could find probably one tool that integrated all that stuff more slick than I have it currently integrated. I just don't have time right now to do that. Yeah. But it works really well.
Yeah. So I think this is one thing that's nice about, and maybe Anneli can speak to this, but I think Practice Better does incorporate a couple of those things all in one tool. But like I use Stripe as well. The only thing I don't recommend is any payment system that requires your client have an account there. That's like Venmo, right? That's like PayPal. You have to have an account. They don't have to pay via the pay, they can use a debit card, but I would prefer some sort of merchant account that doesn't require that your client open an account there. Something like that. So I've got a couple more questions here before I let you go. Melissa is saying, I don't seem to get much respect as a coach from people that I know and try to coach. Is it better to have strangers as clients?
Yes. I'm sorry to say, I know it'd be really nice if we could just mine our friend group, but they're just the worst clients. Don't even touch your family. Forget it.
No, let them come to you if they specifically ask. And I've had to tell family members when we are having a conversation, I am not your cousin. I'm Coach Laura. No pussyfooting. We're not going to chit chat about the kids, other than beyond the way I would with a client, but and never ever try to help my family when it's not solicited. If they have a question, I'll answer it, or I'll ask them why they're asking and all that other stuff, but I never offer unsolicited advice. There's nothing more uncomfortable to be the nutrition police at Thanksgiving.
This is the thing we teach us in our course. There's these stages of change, right? You have to think about this, gang, because we always hear like, what if there's a client who's like resistant to work with me, or they just, how do you convince people to work with you? The answer is you don't. You don't convince people to work with you. They have to want to work with you. They have to be at the stage of change where they're like, I want a coach. I'm ready for a coach. Ooh, this coach specializes in what I'm struggling with. So don't go chasing people who aren't interested. Like this is a waste of your time and you're not going to enjoy that.
That's right. Get out there, talk to people about what you do, or just put out there. This is why social media is great. A lot of people ask, do I have to be on social media? No, you don't have to, but you do have to find a way to be out there so that people understand who you are and what you do, that way that when they're ready, they can kind of come to you. Marty's asking, Erin, do you work only with women clients? Also, if someone brings you labs, do you work with their doctor on the program?
Yeah. So I typed a response to Marty because I was just like, I don't touch labs. I don't want to see them. I don't ask for them. If they talk to me about their lab values, I let that float by. I say, make sure to stay close on your doctor on that one. I don't do labs. Don't get me started on that. I don't think it's important for health coaches to do that. If you're working in a medical clinic, it would be different, but I'm in private practice. My clients are predominantly women. Interestingly, I just signed a client this week who's a guy, and he couldn't be more perfect. He's like the most perfect client. I generally speak to the insulin resistant person, but I speak to it as a woman. And so it resonates with women more, but this is the thing, when your messaging is clear, whoever needs to hear it will hear it. And that might be women or men. It might be young people or old people. You're probably going to get people who surprise you. Like, why did this person want to work with me? Yeah. Because the messaging is clear and it resonates with who it needs to resonate with.
Exactly.
You have to have a specialty. If you don't have a specialty, your messaging isn't clear. So we got to go right back to the specialty.
So this is John. So he's just started the course. I'm just going to read it. I'm new and I started taking the course several weeks ago and haven't even thought about what specific niche I want to be in. What are some niche ideas for health coaches? We can't give you the idea, John. You got to arrive at this. But besides the usual weight loss, etc., does the course go into detail with niches and help with suggestions?
Yeah, we do. And like this whole niche conversation, I just imagine business coaches probably dread waking up in the morning and having to answer this question, because and I just want to come back to the beginning of my story, which was, and I'm sorry if this sounds so trite, but we encourage you to connect with your story. That's probably your niche. Weight loss is not a great niche. I wouldn't call it a niche at all. It's, I guess, an area, but then you have to get really specific, like what weight loss. I have a friend who's a health coach, and he's 50 years old and he's in great shape, and his testosterone levels are normal. Okay, hear me out. So he works with guys who want to be in great shape. And I was like, dude, testosterone is your niche, because that is such a problem that men of your age are struggling with. Like, how can you talk about, the anti-dad bod, this other kind of crude testosterone, talking points I'll spare you guys with, but like getting men fit and healthy, that's not really a niche, but like some kind of pain point or problem is a niche. And ideally one that you can personally relate to. Otherwise, that's going to be real hard for you to remotely talk about it.
Yes. Ray's asking, are your customers mainly online?
100% online.
Yeah. So where Erin's is almost all online and through social media, mine are mostly local, and they always have been. Yep. And even when I moved, most of, to be completely fair, I kind of dragged my feet when I first moved, but there's just no hiding what I do and what I love. And I'm outside walking with my kids, and I do my workouts outside. Sometimes I coach at a local gym. I talk to my neighbors, and I've always kind of built it that way. I am getting online. I promise. I've got an app. I forced myself to get the app, Erin. So there's a CoachLaura.fit app in the App Store now. But you need to open an account with me and have a relationship with me for it to actually work, but it's actually there now. So I pushed myself, I paid the money to do it. And now I'm just waiting for this is where I did pay for website help. A friend of mine who I traded coaching for technology, and he's doing my website and he's getting everything up and running, but
everyone wins.
Things can get done. Let's see. Make sure you charge family. Yes. It's the best way to get commitment. Don't cave to price / just a little family discount.
This is the thing. When you make a product, it has a price tag. The price is the price. This is how much it costs. Like, I love that. It's like, I made this thing and it cost this much. There's just no discounts. I don't put it on Black Friday sales. That's how much it costs. Like, that's the thing. So that actually speaks to Keith's question, which is the next one. How did you build your client base? And this is a really quick answer. Patience. I didn't expect to have 100 clients in my roster. I was cool with getting one, and then I was cool with getting the second one, and then I was very cool with getting the third one whenever they showed up. So patience is the skill to master in business building and in health, by the way. Beginning with the beginning in mind, have a clear message, have a product that you can talk about. I talk about my product, 8 weeks to effortless. It has a name, it has a trajectory, it has an outcome. I talk about it like it's a physical, tangible thing you can buy in the store, and then people get it. If they want to buy it, they buy it, but they listen for a while. I just signed somebody last week who had been following me for 4 years. She's like, I got to do it. I'm finally going to work with you. If I was like, oh my God, this isn't working 4 years ago, I wouldn't have gotten her. You know what I mean? Like, so patience is unfortunately the skill to master. It's not going to come quickly. It just isn't. So can you just hook into the process, hang on to your day job for a bit? And just,
I would
chip it away.
You've got to offer to help people. You've got to offer, you've got to put an offer out there, or you're not going to grow a business. And so there are little things you can offer to do for free. Like, I've told this story before, Erin, where I was at the soccer game and I'm with the mom. I had a cooler at every tournament. I would bring like real food. The funny one is
ceviche.
I had ceviche. Yeah, I took it to the baseball game, but I had all this ceviche and my kids loved it. So I brought it to the baseball game. Anyway, so I became known for this, and people would ask questions like, God, where do you find the time? And how, this looks so expensive. So finally one day I was like, well, you know what, if it's really not as hard as you think. There's ways that you can make healthy food really taste good. So I just made an offer. I said, look, if everybody wants to pitch in $20, I will make all the food for our kids in between games.
Yeah. And
I brought everybody that wanted to participate gave me money. I went out and bought the food, and I made food for the whole team. And they're like, wow, and I got a bunch of clients from that, so you get clients by making an offer to do something, to help. Give someone a little taste of what you do.
Right.
They will want to come back for more because they trust you, but you have to offer to help. And don't offer to who was it that said, don't do it for free? Corey. Do not offer your entire coaching program for free. Don't do that. This is what I do for a living. Let me know if you want to talk about it, but if throw out the price tag. If they're not a buyer right then and there, that's fine. But you can offer little things for free that allow people to experience you and what you offer.
Mm-hmm. I think that's interesting because like the mom who brings ceviche to the baseball game, that's such a clear message versus Laura, the health coach. That's not a clear message. So Marsha has a question about legal requirements. And I just don't think this is the conversation for legal requirements, unfortunately, because we're kind of talking more about business building. I'm sorry, Marsha. But Allie's question is about my strategy for social media. If you follow me on social media, you see that there's no strategy. I speak about whatever springs to mind, whatever grabs my attention, but I'm always speaking from my personal point of view, which is what it's like to live with a broken metabolism, blah, 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 all that stuff. Because I did. And I know my clients are. And it's like, I really do care about this stuff and I really am interested in it. And it's the only thing I love talking about. And I just riff. I have no content schedule. I don't really do a good job. I'm super inconsistent. But what I'm consistent with is my message is pretty much always the same because it's pure and authentic expression of who I am as a human being. And if you're trying to pretend to be something else, that's never going to come through. So I wish I had a more like tactical answer for you, but it all comes back to what is your specialty? What do you care about? What do you want to do? And then just speak that, and just be it and embody it. Yeah. Just do that and practice patience because it does not happen overnight at all.
Yeah. You do keep a running list of post ideas though, right?
Yes.
If stuff comes to mind for you, the notes app.
Right. Anytime you're out in the world and something catches your eye or frustrates you, or you hear somebody saying something goofy about nutrition that you totally don't agree with, I jot that down. Like, oh, I was at my workout the other day. Okay. Anecdote. And we did this really hard, super glycolytic workout. It was a super hard workout, really intense. And the instructor afterwards said, okay, gang, make sure you all go home and eat about 20 grams of lean protein within 30 minutes. I was like, whipped out my phone. I'm like, you don't have to eat anabolic lean doses. Like I just jotted it down. Someday when I think about going back to it, I'm going to just write a post about how that stuff is goofy. Now, if you're a personal trainer, bodybuilder, you might say, well, no, that's real. The anabolic window is real. Cool. That's your point of view. But from my point of view, that's goofy from my point of view. And my clients will say, man, my instructor gave me this really bewildering nutrition advice at the end of this like cardio class about protein and the anabolic window. And like, I'm confused by that. So that's where I come in. Like, hey, that's bunk. Don't listen to that. You don't need to do that. Here's how a metabolically flexible body would fuel a cardio workout like that. You don't need to like time. Anyways, as an example, you're going through life caring about some little focused area of nutrition and health and fitness. Your ears perk up. You witness things in the environment. Jot that down. In this note, it's in my phone, is my 50 headlines app. There's 150 in there now. And it's sort of like when I have a minute, which I don't really have that many minutes spare, but if I think I need to write something I haven't written on Instagram in a while, I'll just pull one of those out and kind of riff.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm like, well, let everybody know how they can kind of follow you because not everybody's on social media and blah, 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 but everybody knows where to find you now at this point. But you do have an Instagram handle in case people aren't, right? It's
Eat Simple Erin. Eat Simple Erin. Yep.
Eat Simple Erin. That's predominantly where that is. And so look, folks, Primal Pro is phenomenal. There's some sort of deal out there right now for Primal Pro. So if you're interested with that, give me a call. Launch Your Coaching Business is launching soon. So if you kind of want to learn how Erin did it, she's going to literally take you through it and launch your coaching business. Yeah, you can still sign up for that.
And that's why I wanted to share that pub story. Because like the Launch Your Coaching Business course that I'm running in February is just like sitting at the pub with me, like I did with Bob. Like, okay, what's your business? What's your specialty? Nope, that's not your specialty. Get like, I'm literally going to sit with you and build this with you. We're going to build you a one-on-one program that's going to enable you to attract clients. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to get you your first 10 clients. I'm not going to get you your first $10,000. That's cart before horse. I'm horse. I am the horse. You're doing horse actions here.
Yes. Master Coach still has some room. And if you're not a PhD, give me a call. We can talk about the broad program, but also just those of you that are students that just kind of want to know where to find stuff. We have so much content in the course, in the virtual masterclass, in the, if you're already a graduate, the Business Resource Center. And if you hear Erin and I talk about, oh, that's already in there, and you're like, I can't find it, reach out to me, reach out to Chloe, let us know. We'll help you find all the resources that are already there. There's so much there. And Chloe and I will talk to you too if you're just like, hey, I just need And Erin has too. If you just need feedback on something. Hey, I wrote a UVP, or what do you think about this as my niche, or I'm struggling with this. This is what we're here for. That's what these webinars are for. That's what Erin's Q&A. Erin does a Q&A. Did you guys know that? She runs a live Q&A like almost every month. Chloe does them. So please take advantage of these live webinars. We kind of consider them part of the curriculum. They're just not compulsory. You don't have to be on them to graduate, but we are here for you, people. That's what we're here for. All right. So I'm going to let Erin go. I'm going to let you all go. We will send out the replay. And thanks so much for sharing an hour and 10 minutes with us.
Thanks, guys. That was fun.
Bye, everybody. See ya.
Bye.